Good morning and rise and shine. Rise and shine. We are back at the COABE Rise and Shine Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, day four. Day four. We're on day four. We have so much going on this week, and I am really excited. I'm super excited about the guests that are going on be on today. My name's Jeff Abramowitz. I'm the COABE Public Policy Chair and also co-chair for the State Advocates for Adult Education Fellowship Program. And wow, it's been an incredible week. We've had so many amazing guests on the podcast, and I can't thank all of the guests from everyone that started Monday morning, got us rising and shining and getting up and energized. And I want to give everybody a big thank you for joining the podcast throughout the week. And I know there's a lot of people jumping on. We've been taping it. We're going to be pushing it out. So if you can't catch it, because there's a lot going on this week, I know a lot of activity across the country for Adult Education Week, please check out the recording and listen to it. There's some great information being shared out, and really excited about today's guests. I want to just give us a quick rundown of today. There's a lot of things happening in across the country, but here in Washington, we have a few events that are not going to be through the internet. So I'm not sure how, unless you're here in the city, you're going to be able to. But I'm going to give a shout out to Don Finn, who's on today, and you'll hear Don come on as a guest in a little while. But there's a legislative briefing that's happening this morning that's super, super important, and I want to get to. So at some point this morning, if you see me pop out and you see Don jump on, Don and I were doing this last year, and he was my companion in crime during our podcast last year for Adult Education Family Literacy Week. And Don's he's just super. So he's going to come on and he'll lead the charge the rest of the time so I can get to the hill. But there's so much happening. It's really been an exciting week. There's some things coming up that I do want to tell you about. One is we're closing out the week tomorrow with two events. One event, which is a personal event because I'm leading it. Well, actually leading both of them kind of, but the first one is at 1:00, and that's through Links. So if you're not part of Links, you need to be part of Links. Links is the platform for the U.S. Department of Education, and there are all these different communities of practice. It's a great resource tool for everyone that's in the field, and it is totally free. It's free 95. So if you jump on and register for Links, it's lincs.ed.gov. There's an event tomorrow afternoon at 1:00, and we're going to be talking about AEFL week in the context of correctional education, and something that often doesn't get enough space when we talk about Adult Education Family Literacy Week. So it's going to be from 1 to 2. And then at 2:00, COABE is going to be doing our SAFE Fellows, our State Advocates for Adult Education Fellowship. All our fellows are going to be on sharing their awesomeness. So we've had so many proclamations, so many events this week, and many of them were led by our state fellows. So we're going to give them an opportunity to shine tomorrow afternoon and share out what's been going on and what they've been doing. So I hope you'll check in on that, and that you will get a link for, and that will be you can even check it out and get all the information on the COABE website. And Lindsay might even be able to put it in today, so you have the link for it. So enough talking. I'm really excited about our first guest because last year, Amanda Bergson-Shilcock, she's senior fellow at the National Skills Coalition, was on our podcast when at Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. We ended up having her on the Behind Every Employer podcast for COABE with Anson Green. And I can think of very few people in this country that know more about the Digital Equity Act and the importance of digital equity and access in our country than Amanda. So good morning, Amanda. How are you?
Good morning, Jeff. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks. And we're super excited to have you on, and you've been just this wealth of information. But I wonder if we could just start off really simple if you could just tell us a little bit about the National Skills Coalition and the work that you guys do.
Sure. We're a 20-year-old nonprofit organization. We're a big tent bipartisan coalition of adult education, community college, and workforce development advocates. And I come to this work having spent 9 years at a community-based organization in Philadelphia, providing adult education services to immigrant and U.S.-born adults. I come from a family of educators, although they're mostly early childhood educators. And it's always a huge pleasure for me to be doing an event with COABE, which has done so much to raise the profile of adult education nationally.
I love it. So, Philadelphia is my home turf. So I love the fact that you've done some work there. And I was an executive director in Philly for a little bit for a workforce development agency. And honestly, Philadelphia is kind of a small New York, a microcosm of what's happening in our country, and doing some great work in adult education. How long have you been with the National Skills Coalition?
I've been with NSC for 8 years now.
Wow. God.
I know, time flies.
It really does. So how is it? So you've become this recognized figure in the country when it comes to digital equity and digital education. How did that come to pass? Was this a passion of yours, or how did you get involved in this particular area?
I started teaching digital equity classes when I was a 14-year-old working at my local public library in the 90s, in a small library outside Philadelphia, and teaching folks basic things like email, FTP, that's file transfer protocol for those of us who weren't around in the 90s, and this new thing called the World Wide Web. And that really opened my eyes to how powerful adult education can be, because we had adults coming into the library who had something that they wanted to do or be able to learn from the computer. And by having this in-person class, they were able to build those skills and that comfort and be able to do it. One of my favorite memories was actually teaching people about the NASA website, because NASA was a very early adopter of the web. And you could go on and look at these amazing photos of outer space and the planets, and it would just blow people's mind, right? Because we were used to paper encyclopedias at that point, and we weren't used to being able to hop on a website and be able to get all kinds of photos and videos of cool things around the world and even outside the world. So that's really where my connection around adult education and digital literacy started.
I love it. I love it. So I remember using that World Book Encyclopedia and how
Yep.
fast that went out to date. So once the people realized that the web was there and get all this information just like that. We're really wanting to talk about this Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, which is centered around making change happen in adult education. I think for me, the Digital Equity Act is one of the biggest game changers. I know in the field and the work that I do is that digital literacy is one of the, if not the biggest barrier for men and women who are trying to get smarter, not only getting their high school equivalency, but also getting a career credential or going post-secondary. They need to have, and then not even to mention the necessity in the workplace and how important it is for people to have digital literacy. The Digital Equity Act came into play. Can you tell our audience a little bit about how it came around to be what it is today and where it's headed?
Yeah. So the first thing to know about the Digital Equity Act is it's a way to get new money into the adult education system, right? We in adult ed have been living with limited funding in WIOA for way too long. The Digital Equity Act was passed as part of the big infrastructure bill that Congress passed at the end of 2021. And Congress really said, okay, there's a universe of people that we care about, that we want to help build digital skills, get access to high-speed internet, and get up-to-date digital devices. And that universe of people overlaps really heavily with adult learners. So it's people who have limited literacy or limited English language skills, people with low income, people who are aging adults over the age of 60, people who are currently incarcerated. And I know you're doing a session tomorrow on adult education in correctional environments. A whole range of people who are being served, rural residents, veterans. These are the people we're already serving in adult education programs. These are the adult learners that we all care about and see every day in our organizations and our programs. Congress put this new money out, and the goal of this new money is, how do we help states close the digital equity gaps for different populations? How do we make sure that everybody has access to high-speed internet, a good digital device so they're not trying to do everything on their phones, and the skills necessary to be able to navigate everyday life, right? Help their kids with online school, access a telehealth appointment if they need mental health services, particularly if they're in a rural area, be able to do their jobs, which, as you know from my research, increasingly require digital skills at every level of the job market. So that was Congress's intent. And there's two pots of money that states will be getting. There's formula funding that will go to every state and then be regranted down to the local level starting in early 2024. And then there's federal competitive grants that nonprofits and other adult education providers can compete for starting a little bit later in 2024.
Yeah, so there's so that's a super description of what's happening in all this and what the target is for digital literacy. And there are two really key separate components to it. One is access, and then the other is this skills gap in digital literacy. And there are over 20 million people in the country that lack digital skills and can even the knowledge to operate a computer. I mean, and I think there's a real realization or recognition by the legislature that we needed to do more in our country. And that's what's kind of like pushing this forward. But last July, every state, all 50 states, filed their plan, like what they were going to do, how they were going to handle, how they were going to use this money, what it looked like. I've been on the Pennsylvania Broadband Commission in our state, where in Pennsylvania, and in that space, I began to really listen to the communities that need this funding, that need access. You know, Pennsylvania is a very wide state, and we have a lot of territory, a lot of areas that don't even have access. And what are the plans for getting people access to the digital divide and some of these resources? So what is it that when we talk for adult education, family literacy, like, look, we're all about advocacy. We want to make sure we're using this act to the best of our abilities to help our students and our learners. What is it that we want to communicate to our legislators and to people that are, that are behind this legislation that supported it?
Yeah, I think there's three things to communicate. The first is those folks that you all wanted to be served under the Digital Equity Act, we're already serving them. We have earned the trust of communities. We are in communities. We have that track record of service. The second thing is our learners need these services, right? We are hearing all the time from adult learners who, I just helped one the other day. She was working as a certified nurse aide, and she was about to get fired because she hadn't been able to log on to the app that they required her to use and turn on the geolocation services so that the home health agency could see that she was located at the patient's house and could log in to get paid, right? That's a very basic digital skill. It's not that she wasn't a smart person. She speaks French, Creole, and English, but she just hadn't figured out that one particular digital skill, right? So that's the second thing, right? The first thing is we've earned the trust of adult learners in the communities that Congress wanted to target. The second is our adult learners need digital skills. And the third is our organizations are poised to spend this money effectively and well. You mentioned the 5-year state digital equity plans that every state has to submit. There's kind of a rolling deadline. Some states have already gotten their plans in. Some states will be submitting over the next couple of months. But either way, adult educators from an advocacy standpoint can chime in, submit public comments in their state, to weigh in on these plans. And then once the plans are in place, the plans are really the roadmap for how the next 5 years of formula funding in your state will be spent, right? And so it's really important to not only get your public comments in, but to stay engaged. And you mentioned being formally part of your broadband team in Pennsylvania, which is amazing. There are a handful of states like Colorado and Hawaii that have done a really good job of including adult ed, but in other states, we kind of have to elbow our way to the table, right? And that's always an important thing to do. So the internetforall.gov website will tell you who the contact person is for your state. And that's internetfor all.gov. It's a federal website. And if you just click on your state on the map there, it'll tell you the contact information for your digital equity person in your state.
So I love it. That's super, super helpful. I'm often on that site, and it's internet for the number 4 all.gov, and it's a wonderful
Oh,
resource tool.
oh, sorry, it's actually for FOR, Internet for
Oh,
All.
okay, gotcha. FOR dot, it's actually right on I keep it on my desktop so that I can just click it when I need to. But that is one of the best resources that you can go to if you're looking for more information on the Digital Equity Act, and in particular, those people in your state that are active in the space. What's interesting too is and you mentioned something super important, is actually being at the table. Not long ago, I was listening and watching to a number of events that were being scheduled, and then there was absolutely, out of 30 something meetings, there was not one that had justice involved, individuals at the table. And these are opportunities for us to have voice at the table, and we need to be there. So if you notice a community meeting coming up or a hearing schedule, get involved, send your comments, send your thoughts, make sure that your organization or your agency is part of the game, so that as these RFPs come out and as funding comes out, that you're there at the table and that you're able to access some of the funding for the great work that you're doing and really continue to build it. The other thing I think that's super important, we don't talk enough about too, and I know the National Skills Coalition is just amazing at getting the word out about that, is the connection between education and the workforce. For the longest time, our Department of Ed and Department of Labor, I think they knew each other existed, but they weren't really good friends. And now they're finally becoming partners. Like, they're realizing we got to work together, because if we can get people skilled and we can give them the skill sets they need to succeed at work, that it's a win for everybody in the field. Like, we're getting people smarter, we're getting them into a career pathway, not just an entry-level job, and we're giving them the skills to move up the ladder. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the National Skills Coalition and the work that they do, kind of putting these pieces together.
That's such an important point. And again, if we think back to our adult learners, one of the major reasons people tell you that they've enrolled in adult education is because they want to get a job or they want to get a better job, right? Over and over. That's what we hear directly from learners. So a key focus for National Skills Coalition is, how do we make sure there are good on-ramps from adult education into more higher level workforce development training and opportunities for adult learners to build skills that are specifically relevant for the workplace. You mentioned IET before. Integrated education and training and other accelerated models are really important, because it can sometimes be demotivating for people to be super exciting about learning nursing or welding or something like that. They walk into the door of a community college, they say, I want to sign up for a nursing or a welding program, and then somebody says, oh, go earn your GED first, or oh, go do some developmental math classes first. And that feels very demotivating sometimes. And the beauty of an integrated education and training model is people can build those reading or math or English skills at the same time as they're getting trained in nursing or welding. So when we think about overlaps with workforce development, that's a really key way that adult education can help do that. The second is pre-apprenticeship, which I know you also know about.
Yeah, both of those are just amazing tools that we are just not doing enough in the country. And if you need information on those, especially the IET, I know we have the IET Design Camp that created this toolkit. And if you get onto the Links platform through OCTAE, the U.S. Department of Education, you can get this whole toolkit that's going to walk you through from the beginning all the way through the launch of creating an IET in your state. So check it out, especially even if you're in the corrections setting. There's a new IET and corrections toolkit that came out as well. These are like really helpful tools that will help you kind of create the programming that can really have a significant impact moving forward. Amanda, thank you so much. How do we get more information on National Skills Coalition?
Thanks for asking. Our website is nationalskillscoalition.org. We warmly encourage you to sign up for our mailing list. But I think the most important thing is to remember that your story from your organization, from the classes you're teaching, from the programs you're designing, your story is the most powerful thing we can put in front of legislators. That's what they're hungry for. They want to know about how real people in their districts are being served. And frankly, what new interesting stuff is going on, right? We talk about, okay, what does it mean for someone to re-enter the community after having been incarcerated? Louisville, Kentucky is doing amazing work with currently incarcerated folks, helping them build digital skills using the Ubuntu operating system that's designed for developing countries with lousy broadband. It turns out it also works in corrections environments where the prison doesn't let you have good internet access. Those are the kinds of stories that you can share from your daily work that make you a powerful advocate. And so we want you to sign up for National Skills Coalition's newsletter, join our webinars, attend our events, and make sure that just as you're doing with COABE's advocacy around adult education, that you're getting adult ed to the table in these workforce conversations so that we're taken as seriously and viewed as equally important as the rest of the workforce folks who are in these conversations.
I love it. Amanda, thank you so much for being on today, and thanks for helping us work through some logistic challenges this morning. But
thanks for having me.
We appreciate you so much. The National Skills Coalition, you got to check it out. And Amanda Bergson-Shilcock, if you need any information on this, check out the National Skills Coalition website. They do a wonderful job of really explaining everything and keeping you abreast of what's happening with the Digital Equity Act. So Amanda, thank you so much. We're going to move on to our next guest today. I'm super excited about having Dr. Don Finn in the house today. And Dr. Don has been, he has been past president of the Coalition on Adult Basic Education. He's also associate professor and past dean of Regent University School of Ed. And Don's a friend. So there's nothing better than that. He checks off all those boxes. And he was my companion in crime last year when we actually had the podcast started last year for AEFL week here in Washington. And Dr. Don got to take the reins and lead some of the shows that we did, and he was just great. So I'm going to give a disclaimer here because I got to get up to Capitol Hill. So I'm going to talk to Don for a bit, and then I'm going to shoot out, and Don's going to run the rest of the show. And we have Christine Hempel coming on and Christine Valdez coming on there, and you got to stay tuned for that because they're just amazing. I just want to give a heads up to Lindsay to make sure you make Don a co-host on this too, because I don't want to lose anybody when we get out. But Dr. Don, how are you?
Hey, Jeff, I'm doing good. Good morning, everybody. Hey, first of all, Jeff, let me just say, great job this week. I was unable to attend yesterday, but your Rise and Shine greetings have been full of energy and really helped to kick off the day positively. So good job there. And let me also just recognize all the folks behind the scenes, those who are not seen, but definitely help to make it go so smoothly. I'm not, because I know I'm going to miss people, but you got a great support there. So great to be with you, Jeff.
We do. Well, Lindsay's been on. She's being the big C in our picture all day. And Lindsay Lord's doing a great job at keeping us running and everybody on task and getting everything in the chat box. Don, so much to talk to you about because, first of all, you've had probably 25 years plus of experience in adult education. And I know this is not your first rodeo when we talk about Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. In your mind, how have things changed over the course of your career and what you're seeing today in the field?
Jeff, that's a great question. I will say that I'm from Virginia, and Virginia had a very coordinated legislative day for years and years and years, where we would go to changeover week in the Virginia General Assembly, and so. Really, I've been engaged in the process, the advocacy process for adult education for many. starting in the late 90s, when I guess when Amanda was doing digital literacy. It makes me feel especially old when I heard that, but regardless, what we did there, and what Virginia still does the face-to-face visits, goes in and makes appointments with the senators and the legislators in Richmond. And so it's been a lot of face-to-face. Now, the transition that we have seen, which has been really exciting, is that under COABE's leadership, and Sharon Bonney has been the point person for sure in getting a national campaign, an organized national campaign together to advocate for adult education, and not just about funding, but really advocacy has to do with providing information, letting people know what's going on in the programs. It's not just about the ask for money, although that's critically important. And I think one of the greatest things was formation of the Educate and Elevate partnership with the state directors of adult education to get that off the ground. And it's been a number of years now, but that has been a go-to site for fact sheets on adult education, not only nationally, but also through different states and so on, and what's happening. Great resources for those for advocates to take to their state, local, and federal decision makers about adult education. So that transition, it's really become a national movement. COABE has really been at the point of that. And again, of course, having the AEFL week activities in DC and organizing past few years, and then having the Educate and Elevate site and having that movement as well to help support it has been outstanding. So there's been a lot of change, and a lot of that has been digital. We've been able to engage so many folks nationally who probably have never, who can't afford to go to DC, but yet have had a very effective voice on Capitol Hill, again, as well as getting engaged at the state level.
Yeah, so COVID was it obviously was a curse, but there was a blessing in there too. And the blessing was that we were able to pivot to go digital with a lot of things, and which meant that a lot more people could have meetings with legislators because they were able to get on virtually with their staff or with the legislator themselves, and they were able to have these meetings without having necessarily to come to Washington. But I will tell you, one of the, if not the best tool in the toolkit that COABE provides to all of our members is the Educate and Elevate platform. And if you're not familiar, and you are doing a disservice to your state if you don't jump on there and just play around, the very first thing I do whenever I go to see a legislator is I pull up our fact sheet, our state fact sheet, wherever I'm going or whoever I'm talking to, and pull up all the data that you're going to need to make you sound like you really know what you're talking about, right? Those fact sheets are tremendous, and we COABE spends a lot of time making sure that the information is accurate, that it's updated, and they're so helpful for legislators at all levels, even at a state level or a local level, to give the picture of what's happening in adult education in your state or in your wherever you are. You need to check it out. And then the other thing that's on there, which is also just amazing, is the ability to schedule meetings, which just make it so simple. It's literally 3 clicks and you're through, and you're able to schedule meetings with whoever you might need to talk to in order to share your stories. And that's really what it comes down to. Don, you're past president of COABE, and I was blessed to be able to spend time under your reign and to be able to work with you throughout this. And there's definitely a passion there for adult education. On Adult Education Family Literacy Week, though, it's really the one real intense opportunity for us to share the messaging of adult education and tell the stories of our students. And I'm not sure, I'm pretty confident I know the answer to this, but what's your philosophy on advocating and getting those stories out? How important are those stories to legislators?
The personal experiences of adult learners are so moving. There are so many stories out there of individuals whose lives have been greatly enhanced because of their participation in adult education, economically enhanced, self-confidence, the impact that adult education and not only working towards a credential, but then becoming in a given area, whether it's a GED or a workforce certificate, and so on. And I've always said this, that that adult education can truly alter a family tree because of the generational impact that it has on families. To see a mom, a dad, a grandparent, an aunt, and uncle, to see an adult in the household that they have a relationship with, to work towards a goal, and the value that they place on education. And so telling those stories to those decision makers, and providing examples of folks who have really, there are so many untold stories. That's the thing too. But just examples of how lives have been improved, how families have been have truly been changed, and the course of people's lives have been changed through adult education is tremendous. And it really is moving for the legislators. And so having those stories are awesome. Bringing adult learners to talk with the decision makers, there's nothing like it. Those are the ones that steal because of what they bring.
So Don, I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about what is what I believe is your legacy, one of your legacies that you've left with COABE and you continue to be involved in, which is the journal. And can you tell our audience, if they're not aware already, about the journal, the COABE journal, and what's coming up?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, and you're right. The COABE journal, flagship publication of the Coalition on Adult Basic Education. And we have had a journal actually for many years, over close to 40 years. There's been some sort of a journal. And really, since the late 90s, the journal has become a much more regularly published publication focusing on adult learning. In fact, I was just going through the archive and saw some of the articles having to do with technology and education from the late 90s, which I thought it just blew me away. It was just so interesting to see that and how far we've come. But the COABE journal actually has gone through a few different iterations and areas of emphasis in what they bring to the table, what the journal brings to the table. And really, since 2018, the COABE journal has actually shifted in focus to ensure that there's more of a practitioner focus in the articles and on the themes. And the other thing is that we have been theme-based. So the big shifts have been, instead of articles on different topics, we've decided to have various themes. The current theme, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit because Kristin was involved in it, is the program Succeed When Learners Lead. Looking at adult education leadership. The edition that is coming out, it's going to hit the streets within a week, is about professional development in adult education. And in that edition, we have a variety of different articles that focus on. We have a research article, a research study that was done nationally. We have a number of articles in there that talk about professional development and methods for professional development for adult educators. And then we have reflection articles as well, having to do with experiences with adult education. And so we're really, really pleased to see how that came together and looking forward to the impact that that's going to have. That particular edition, by the way, that's coming out, was done in partnership with the Association of Adult Literacy Professional Developers, or the AALPD. So we worked jointly to put the article together to seek out folks, and also through the editorial process and the review process and so on. So the COABE journal is a peer-reviewed publication. We have a double-blind peer review process. So the individuals will submit articles. We scrub the articles of any identifying information, and we have reviewers, experts in the field, who will review those articles, again, not knowing who wrote them, to really preserve the integrity of the process. And it's really gone well. So yeah, Jeff, definitely, since I've taken the reins as general editor, of course, I've been involved since 2017, but taking the reins as general editor beginning in 2021, it has really been a very gratifying experience, and really has been wonderful to see how we've been able to provide the field with inspiration, with methods for effective practice, and stories from their peers and so on. So it's been a wonderful project, and I'm happy to still be a part of it.
Yeah, so I'm really excited too, because one of the next ones coming out is going to be on advocacy, and I'll be working with you on that one. Really excited about that, and very timely, especially with what's why we're here today on Adult Education Family Literacy Week. So yeah, thank you for that. It's just a great resource tool, and it's something that, you know, if you haven't checked it out, we put the links in for the COABE Journal, the current one, also the archives. You want to check them out and spend a few minutes. It's well worth the read, and there's some great, fantastic articles in there and a lot of information, tons of good stuff. I'm going to pass the reins over. My good friend Kristin Hempel is on, and Kristin is I'm so glad to see you, Christine Valdez. I apologize before you got on. I did give a disclaimer. I'm headed up to Capitol Hill for the caucus, so I have to bug out of here. But you're in super good hands with Dr. Don Finn's going to lead the charge for the rest of the morning. And I just wanted to give a shout out and thank you for being on today. And Kristin, also thanks for joining us. So we will, Don, I'm going to pass it over to you to run the rest of the show. I will see everyone tomorrow morning promptly at 9 o'clock, and we're going to do our very last one, our Rise and Shine for the week. I promise I will have my 3 cups of coffee before I get on the show to keep everybody energized, and we're trying to get word out. So if you have friends or colleagues, get them on tomorrow morning. They're going to be able to share out. I'm also asking our fellows, our state fellows and our Sally, if you have been involved in any projects with COABE and want to share out tomorrow, I'm going to be giving you some space. We got some great people on. As a matter of fact, Sharon Bonney, the CEO of COABE, and Shaketa Thomas, the current president, are going to be on. They're going to close us out tomorrow. But if you have any great stories from the week, I want to hear them tomorrow. So be prepared. We're going to send a link around so you can log in as a panelist. And I promise I'm going to give you some space because I want to hear your awesomeness. So Don, I'm going to pass it over to you. Have a great rest of your show, and I'll see everybody tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Hey, Jeff, thank you so much for your good work. Thank you, COABE, and up on the Hill today for those in-person meetings. It really is my pleasure to chat today with a couple of folks here. I actually am was born and raised in Connecticut, and we have 2 guests, 2 fellow nutmeggers who are here, and maybe we can talk about the origin of nutmeg because it's kind of fun of that name for those who are from the state of Connecticut. So Kristin Hempel is our Region 1 representative for COABE, and has a long history of service in adult education. I mentioned the COABE Journal before, and well, look what I have here. Here's the edition that Kristin and I worked on together. Kristin served as the guest content editor. Lindsay has already put the links to the COABE Journal in the chat area, and so you can check this out. This is the one that's current. It's actually going to be replaced in about a week with our new edition that's going to be on professional development. And let me just say one more thing about the COABE Journal. Again, the links are in the chat area. The next edition is going to focus on advocacy. So we really want in your states. We want to hear what's going on, statewide, locally, efforts at the national level. Please check out the website there. Look at the criteria for submitting an article, and seriously consider doing that, partnering up maybe with some colleagues to co-author something. As I mentioned before, we go through a double-blind review process and so on. So enough about the journal.
Well, I do want to say, Don, I'm really looking forward to this professional development journal. So I'm excited to hear it's going to be out next week. This is a wonderful choice of topic, as well as the advocacy coming up. So thank you for all your work on that.
Yeah, absolutely, Kristin. Thank you for that. And also, just as a heads up as well, the journal edition for fall of 24, and yes, we're already planning a year out. The call for articles is going to go out in the spring, but we're going to be working with the National Center for Families Learning, the NCFL, to have a family literacy edition as well. So that's going to be really exciting. But so thank you, Kristin and Christine, both of you, for being here and joining us. If you would, Kristin, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll pass it on to Christine, and then I'll ask you some questions. So go ahead, Kristin.
Absolutely. So hello, Kristin Hempel. I'm the Director of Adult and Community Programs at EASTCONN, which is a regional education service center out here in northeastern Connecticut. I've been on the board at CASE, so that's our state association, for probably about 9 years, 10 years or so, and have really enjoyed my work with them at the state level. It's been a wonderful opportunity to connect with colleagues and help advance adult education within our state. And through my work with CASE, I got hooked on COABE. And I think I went to DC when we had Capitol Hill Days, I don't know, maybe 9 or 8 years ago. And I was just so impressed from the start about the passion and the dedication and all the innovation going on around our country, and to see what COABE was doing and the investment that they and their partners were making to bring us to the state to do advocacy, and really then the impact that had when we sat down and we talked with our representatives. So from that point forward, I was doing everything I could to continue to be involved with COABE and the great work that they're doing. So I'm now the regional rep for Region 1. I just finished my first term, and I'm started my second in July. So I've been enjoying that work, and part of my one of my roles on the board has been as the chair of the task force for student leadership, and that has again just been such a wonderful opportunity to be involved with, and helping to highlight the stories of our learners and open up platforms that their voices can be heard. It's been fantastic, and I've really enjoyed all the different projects I've been able to work on. So that's a little bit about me.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Kristin. And Christine, you're a new face to me, but you're from the old stomping grounds, by the way. Shout back to Anthony Magnifico, who sends greetings from my hometown of Wallingford, Connecticut. But Christine, I understand you are from Middletown. So why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, your background in adult ed, and your involvement with COABE.
So I've been at Middletown Adult Ed for, I think, 17 years. I'm actually a school social worker. So that's been my primary role here. But in the past couple of years, we've been incredibly short-staffed, and I've taken on many other roles and do a lot of tasks, as many of us have. And being a social worker, advocacy is something that obviously is always part of my role as my job. So when I saw the COABE Fellowship, it really intrigued me, and it's been great. I really, really enjoy it, and I think that it has had a huge impact for me, as well as for my adult ed's involvement, both at a state and local and even national level. And I think we're all benefiting from it, and I'm learning a lot.
That's great. And I will say, too, that the State Advocates for Adult Education Fellowship, or SAFE, as I know Jeff has referred to many times, and Jeff oversees that, that is an initiative that actually started in 2021 to help to engage folks at the state and national level with some pointed training and development, resource sharing, collaboration to better advocate for adult education, again, state, local, and nationally as well. So it's been a great program. Let me ask you, in your roles in Connecticut, in your job role, in your role with the Connecticut State Association, and also with COABE, tell me a little bit about your impressions about what you have learned about advocacy over the years, and what you deem to be effective for advocating for adult education.
I'm gonna let Kristin lead with this because she's been doing it a whole lot longer.
Well, I've always found a balance between, having some of the data as well as the stories. I like to lead in with stories because those are just some really powerful hooks to talk and to bring out to life the data that we're then going to share, and really, like I said before, the what our learners have to share, what they've gone through, what they've learned and accomplished. It's always, at least even for me, this many years into the field, it's jaw-dropping and humbling, and so being able to put that out and talk to people in positions of power saying, listen, what you're putting into this is the difference that it's making. And this is, hear from their own words, but then also say, and this is one person, and this is the statistics, and this is what the larger picture looks like. But then, I also just want to say, I think that the power of partnerships and doing that advocacy, the power of social media, I think that those have also been really important. And yesterday we did have our event in Connecticut, and our learners that attended it, we had learners that spoke, but we also had learners that attended it, and they came back feeling so pumped up, so excited, so proud, so energized, both because they were seeing, what could happen for them, but also because they were hearing all of these important people talking about them and saying, we are working for you. We are in lockstep to support you. And what that then means for how those learners take it back and how they jump back into their classes is also, incredibly powerful. So I think that advocacy done well both helps us fund programs and keep doors open, but it also helps people, pull up their boots when you're in hard times and when you're facing challenges, because that there's a whole team behind you that are committed.
So thank you for that, Kristin. It gets a little jumbly here, Kristin and Christine. So let me now go to Christine. Christine, let me ask you a little bit about, you already shared your background in social work. Tell us a little bit about maybe some of the overlap that you see with social work, with adult education, and really the impact that adult education has on families and perhaps those clients that you have worked with through the years. What have been some of the impacts and some of the effects of adult education?
The stories, we're such a deep connection to the stories, the personal stories that are involved. A lot of most adult eds don't have a social worker, but they have guidance counselors. So I'm going to say that I think that Connecticut is a little bit ahead of many states as far as what I've learned this year, as far as advocacy, because of people like Kristin and Anthony who've been involved for so long. But COABE has created this incredible opportunity to layer and to get more people involved. And I think that we're all like Kristin said, we're all working together as a team and being able to pull it all together. But I don't think that should stop anybody from a state that maybe doesn't have a state association that's not as involved, or maybe the connections to COABE, because COABE makes it so easy, provides so many tools, so that if you just can have one person to access, you're making a difference. And that even, what we're able to do now, I'm walking in and just they've already done so many things. So now it's what can I add? And so personal stories is something that I can add. Our event yesterday was great. My students just loved it. And I took that opportunity to interview one of my students. And last night I was thinking, what can I do with that interview besides just put it out there on social media? And I was thinking, she just started with us at in the GED program. She's a single mom. And I'm like, I'm going to follow her. I'm just going to follow her, hopefully to graduate this year, and just keep interviewing her. And just so we can more people can just know about her. When I was speaking with her yesterday, she's like, well, what do they want to know? What? And I'm like, they just want to know, I'm going to say, I had to take her knife off of her before we entered the Capitol. We're like, why do you have a knife? Well, because she needs it to walk home. These are the stories. I'm like, those are the little things that people need to hear about what they're going through and why they didn't stay in school at the time.
And thank you for sharing that. And I think that the lived experiences that our students have had and what they are in, and even some of the generational impacts, some of the negativity and so on, are really eye-opening to a lot of folks. And as I mentioned in the previous segment with, to Jeff, is that the generational impact and the way that family trees can be completely altered and bloom and blossom in other ways because of adult education is just amazing. So that is awesome. Thank you for the good work that you're doing in your state. So Kristin, let me turn it back to you. And specifically, why don't you tell, if you could, share a little bit with with our audience today what the role is of a regional representative, a COABE regional representative. What are some things that the regional reps do, and you know, what would be some appropriate to their regional reps, you know, as far as for assistance or technical support or anything else. And while you're doing that, Lindsay, if you can actually drop the webpage address into the chat so people can see what region that they might be in, that would be great too. Kristin?
Sure. I think about myself a lot of times as a connector. You know, we hold meetings, quarterly meetings, both for the general membership as well as for the leaders in our regions. But also we are there through email and other, you know, media. A lot of times people will write in and say, hey, I have this question. Can you know, do you have an answer? And sometimes I'll connect them to someone else in our region if they have a question that they're putting out and they want to source it and see how other people are approaching it. Sometimes it's about something that COABE can actually help them with. Yesterday at our event, someone in the audience wanted to know how they can weigh in and have an impact on the NRS and the different kinds of assessments that are going in. And I love being able to talk about how COABE is involved in those things and how we can help elevate amplify people's questions and voices so that they are heard. So I think as a regional rep, that's a lot of what we're doing. We're convening, we're connecting, we're sharing information, we're helping to bring things forward as we're hearing it from the field so that COABE can continue to be on the cutting edge of what the needs are, and help to then, you know, come up with solutions or gather together thought partners in order to provide ideas and opportunities.
And Kristin, in your role as a connector, what if somebody in a region is maybe wanting to begin conversations with partners, or perhaps provide information on the benefits of adult education in order to maybe break into new partnerships, or perhaps, you know, convince folks, you know, that it might be worth starting programs and funding and so on. What types of information and resources can the regional rep provide there?
Well, I think that sometimes I'm connecting them to people within their state. Sometimes I'm connecting them to a colleague, you know, say, oh, you know, we were in that, you know, we're in the general meeting, so-and-so was talking about it. Did you follow up with them? Trying to make sure that they're building those networks too, but also without a doubt, always referring them back to the amazing set of resources that COABE has on our website and through our platforms, because there really are just a wealth of best practices and tips and tricks and people who have rolled up their sleeves and really dug in deep on this. But then also, you know, really try to encourage them to continue to engage in the conversation, whether it's with me or with others, so that we continue to get that feedback and we continue to grow those resources, and that we can continue to be a partner with them. I don't see myself as just handing a set of resources or making a connection and then good luck. No, you know, we're really in it with the field. And so I think those are a few of the things I would do.
Great, and I will just so folks can see, I just dropped in the chat the web address for educateandelevate.org. That is a primary resource that we have set up at COABE that provides fact sheets for individual states as well as nationally, looking at adult education, looking at adult education impact, looking at there are some stories on there as well. So make sure that you look at that. Also, Lindsay dropped the regional map in the chat as well. It's coabe.org/regional-map. So check that resource out as well, so that you can see who your regional rep is. First of all, what region you're a part of, what region your state is a part of, and you could reach out to your regional rep for any resources or assistance or you know, just recommendations and so on. We really at COABE, I say we, I mean, I guess I'm kind of riding in the sunset in my COABE retirement.
Never.
But COABE really, you know, our mission really is to inspire educators so adults succeed and communities thrive. And part of that inspiration is providing resources and connections and so on. So as we're wrapping up this segment, Christine, I'm going to throw it to you, and I'm going to ask you a question. And this is the type of question that Jeff has been asking at the close of every Rise and Shine podcast. If you had your magic wand, what would you see, or what would you have done? What would adult education look like? If you could just swipe the magic wand, what would happen for adult education in your area and nationally?
I just thinking engaging more students, like our when I got involved years ago, our population was much greater, and now our population is smaller, but it's, you look at the facts. It's not that people without high school education or English language skills are not out there. They're out there in groves. So how do we reach them? How do we let people know we're here? My adult ed is part of the K through 12 system. Still, we're like the non-existent people, getting the word out there. And I'm going to go back to COABE and all the tools that they have. That it's just, you might be like overwhelmed and think, oh, I don't have these resources. There's so many things that they make so easy, whether it's creating like the 3-click Ignite, just to like get out there, get funding for you, be politically active, or whether it's your social media, like, we don't have pictures, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do that. It's already done for you. Like, it's just grab and go. Like, you don't know what to say, you don't know what the facts are, they're already put together. Just cut and paste, or if you want to create more creative, you can take it farther. And also, COABE is always, again, on the cutting edge. They're getting involved with AI and even using AI incorporated into their advocacy. It's learning these things and being on the forefront. It's going to help all of us grow.
Thank you, Christine. And so, and I think that's great, really being on the cutting edge. And by the way, COABE has a webinar coming up next week on AI. And so go to coabe.org and check that out to see the webinars. That's one of those topics that's really, AI has been around for a long time, but it really is gaining more exposure now. And AI is not necessarily the enemy. AI can be your friend. And so check out coabe.org and look at upcoming webinars, and I encourage you to sign up for that webinar. Kristin, throwing it to you now. You just waved the magic wand. What impact has that had on adult education in Connecticut and nationally?
Goodness. So I would really like to see, I keep going back to the learners, right? And I really feel like they are our future here. And I feel like continuing to really listen to them and see the direction that they're going, figuring out, how we, like, as Christine was saying, how we can connect with the people that are in their families, in their communities, in their neighborhoods, other people. What is it that we need to be doing? We need to continue to grow and evolve. And I think that a lot of that is through having those conversations with our learners as well as our employers, and really helping to, I guess, convene that dialogue so that we can help make those ends come together, and that we can help our learners understand what's going on in terms of the employment environment and how they can get there, and helping employers understand where their workforce is coming from and what they need to do and how they need to invest in order for all of us to thrive. And so I'd like to inspire everyone, the educators, the learners, the employers, to all come together and to really have that conversation and work together to build up stronger communities.
Definitely. Yeah. Excellent. I really hope that we can energize your magic wand and make it happen. I'll tell you. So thank you so much, Kristin and Christine. Thank you for your work, not only in Connecticut, but regionally and even nationally. Christine, with all that you're going to be learning and transferring knowledge from the SAFE Fellowship, really appreciate you being engaged in that process as well. I mentioned, by the way, before that the three of us, again, I was born and raised in Connecticut, but we all have that Connecticut connection. So fun fact, Connecticut is called the Nutmeg State really for two reasons. One reason is because a lot of shipping that came in from Asia, South America, and so on. Spices and so on would come into the Connecticut ports, and so one of the very popular spices in the colonial times was nutmeg, and so that is one of the origins. Of course, the other origin is a little bit more suspect in that some crafty Yankees up there in Connecticut figured out ways that they could actually make wooden nutmegs, and they could sell those things. So they were actually pieces of wood that people would grind and put in their tea or put in their recipes and so on. So you can go ahead and embrace whichever origin of the nickname is, but anyway, I think they're both a lot of fun. So I want to thank everybody for joining the Rise and Shine podcast today. And let me just give you a couple of reminders. So there are no more activities today through AEFL week as far as online, but please go ahead and check out the AEFL website and look for ways that you might be able to engage with your legislators to advocate for adult education. The sessions that are coming up tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Jeff is going to be hosting the Rise and Shine time again, and he's going to have some great guests there. There's going to be a session about links and connecting correctional education tomorrow at 1 o'clock. That will be online, and you can register for those. And then thank you, Lindsay. She just dropped the AEFL webpage in the chat. And the wrap-up session is at 2 o'clock, and you can learn a little bit more about the state advocates program, the program that Christine is a part of, that fellowship program. You're going to learn a little bit more about that and what they are up to. So thank you so much again for joining us. Hope that you have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Until then, take care.
Bye. Thank you.